Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Untapped Podcast. My name is Jacob Gabel.
And my name is Jacob Wurtz, guys. Welcome to episode 118 of the Untapped Podcast. Guys, if this is your first time joining us, first of all, thank you. We're thrilled to have you here with us. We've actually got 5 main formats of our show. So first, we have 14 Fortitude episodes. Now, in these episodes, we go over the mental side of our brand. We cover our anecdotal experience with things like mindset and mentality. We then pass on advice and tips to you guys to then apply to your own lives. Next, we have physical vitality episodes. In these episodes, we really get to showcase our expertise because you have 2 certified personal trainers here. So in those episodes, we cover everything to do with the gym, fitness, nutrition, diet, supplements, fitness programs like 75 Hard, and sometimes we will even take trending topics or articles within the fitness industry, and we will give our thoughts and opinions on those. Those episodes are full of free game from us.
Dude, you're dialed right now. Man, locked in for the
Pumped
guest
about
episode,
this
huh?
one, man. Pumped
Come
about
on
this
now,
one.
man. Let's go. Guys, our third format is our breaking news format. The breaking news format is a current event-based format. It is when we discuss current events and articles going on in the world. We discuss whether to doom and gloom over them if they're really a big deal or if they're just propaganda, so to speak. Now, keep in mind, these are not going to be some kind of serious episodes sometimes. Sometimes they're very serious, but other times in the episodes, we are very funny during it. Just because it's hard to keep a straight face with how stupid some of the stuff is that going on in the world.
Yes.
Now,
And we always protect ourselves with the glasses, too.
that's true. We do have conspiracy glasses in case you guys weren't worried or were worried about that.
Protects us from the feds. You know?
Correct. Now, our fourth format is our Knights Table format. It's going to be a big part of today. It's our masculinity-based format. That is when we discuss fatherhood, masculinity, toxic masculinity, what that is, masculinity and the state in the current world. Now, keep in mind, I'm 25, Wurtz is 25, Mitchell is 23. Because of that reason, we're not coming to you from the top of the mountain as a man. The only perfect man, an example of that to ever exist, is Jesus Christ. Now, on to our fifth format. That's what we have for you today is our guest format. That is when we sit down with an entrepreneur, fitness professional, athlete, doctor, somebody with a great story, somebody that's going to bring you a lot of value. You're going to learn a lot from those episodes. We end up learning always a lot from these episodes as well. Now, our last thing to introduce is our producer and my brother, Mitchell Gabel.
What's up, Guido?
Guido Clay Guida, maybe?
No,
Long
Guido
hair, long
with his
beard.
hair. Yeah.
So it's funny you just brought that up, Mitch, because I was going to ask you, when are we going to get him back on the buzz cut train?
Never. He likes looking like a little fruity. That's okay. That's okay. It's all right.
Oh, man.
You and I look like brothers. He's been replaced.
That's what I'm saying.
It's okay.
Kept the name.
Yeah.
Kept the name.
It's fine.
It's easy.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, considering I'm a hockey player, you have to have long hair to be able to play hockey. So you have to quit hockey now. That's how it works.
I don't think that's how it works. You're better at jiu-jitsu.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa. That's a risky path there.
And better looking.
Oh, he said it.
here it is.
He said it.
Here we
Well,
go.
I think we're all overmatched again, though. We keep bringing on guests that are just better looking people than us. So, without further ado, we do have a guest episode, Miss Lau Silva. How are we doing?
Good. How are you guys?
We are pumped about this one.
Yeah.
I am
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Long time coming. We've been scheduling this for a long time, but
Rescheduling over and over too many times.
Yes.
I was like, guys, come on.
I think,
Get it together.
I think literally since January,
Yeah.
we've been rescheduling.
Yes.
I mean, it might have been January, which is rough. So
It's okay.
apologies about that.
We're here. That's what matters, right?
exactly.
And as you guys are like naming all the people that you have for your guests, like athlete, entrepreneur, I'm like, regular schmegular Lau. What about that? Like,
Oh my gosh.
Someone that will bring value, though.
yes,
And
I
that's
hope
the important
so.
part.
Well,
Yes.
the biggest thing we brought you on for is to make sure that we're not toxically masculine. So you have to
Correct.
call that out. Yeah.
Correct.
I have to do that. I will. I wish I had sunglasses that would be protected too, but that explains why you asked for sunglasses.
Exactly.
After.
Exactly.
So you should have told me
The
before.
earrings. It's conspiracy earrings. Is
Oh,
what
that's
is what it is.
That's why the chain is out too. You know, it protects me because I don't have my
Chain?
glasses.
Put your chain out.
Oh my goodness.
My Lord, we'll go down a rabbit hole if start here if we're not careful, I think.
Right.
I know.
Right.
And I can talk, so we should probably be careful.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true. You make a good point, Lau.
Right. Right.
But let's get into a little bit of your backstory, intro, however you want to lead in and tell the audience about yourself for those that don't know you and are listening.
So my name is Lau. For those of you guys who don't know me, and everyone's always like, "How do you pronounce it?" It's literally like saying "wow" with an L. I don't know.
Wow
I
with
don't
an
know
L.
how else to do it.
I like that.
I don't know how else to say it. My full name is Laura because I'm Colombian. I was born in Colombia. It's basically Laura, but do I look like a Laura to you?
No.
exactly.
Not particularly.
Exactly.
No.
So
You look like wow with an L.
exactly. So that's the name I've just stuck to my whole life, honestly. And my family calls me Lala, but I felt weird coming to like the Midwest and having people call me Lala. Like, say it.
Lala. Lala.
I don't,
I don't like it.
I don't
like
like
it.
it from my family. I don't like it from like anybody else.
Right.
It's weird.
Right.
But what I was saying was I was born in Colombia. When I was 6 years old, I moved to, or almost 6 years old, I moved from Colombia to Miami. So that's where I grew up. I was there until I was 29. So I was there for 23 years. I turned 30 here this year. So I always forget that I'm 30. I'm always like, what? I really
There's a 3 in the age now?
I'm in the
she
third
looks
level.
a lot younger than
That's what I'm saying.
JT does.
Well,
that's for sure.
As we've covered, JT is ancient.
Poor JT. That's poor man. He just got married. Let him be on a high.
You're right.
True.
You're
That's a
right.
husband right
You're
there.
right.
That's
Yeah, husband.
exactly
Yes.
a husband.
Yes.
Yeah, but a little bit about me. I have just been on a whirlwind like of journey in the last year. I decided to move to Missouri for just something that I felt like God was pulling me for. And at the beginning, I thought it was like the role that I was working at, like that brought me out here. But little did I know that it was just basically God pulling me to a place where I was coming closer to Him. Because this is the closest that I think I've been to God in a really, really long time. I grew up Catholic, and I struggled with the Catholic religion for a long time because I didn't understand it. When I would ask my parents questions, it was just very like matter of fact, this is what it is, not like really trying to help me fully understand. And I understand where they were coming from as parents. They just wanted me to have a relationship. But I am a middle child through and through. So I need to know why for everything. Like, I want to understand the reason anything is the way it is. And I don't need to see things to believe, but I want to understand why I needed to believe in this.
Sure.
And like throughout my adulthood, I went to different churches growing up, and my parents weren't the happiest when I would go to churches, like Christian churches. But I always was like, if I have a relationship with God, I know that's what my parents want overall. And so I feel like out here, I've been able to really just lean closer into my relationship with God. I feel like He's the most present He's ever been in my life. I say that and I get like chills all over my body.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Like I recently learned that everyone's purpose is to know God, be known, have Him know you, and then make Him known.
Yes.
And so I thought I was coming out here for my purpose, which is actually like your calling, right? Which is like the way that you're going to go about doing that. And I felt like out here I found my purpose. I'm actually aware that that's what I'm supposed to be doing, just trying to figure out how to do it. I come from a very big family. Like I said, my parents and I migrated, but I'm one of 3 girls. And then when I was younger, my parents did get a divorce. Very soon after we moved to the States, it was a really rough transition for us as a family. And I saw my parents go through a lot of things that unfortunately they were just very young. And I think they were both carrying traumas that they were not aware of. Because generational trauma is a real thing. And until a couple years ago, my mom was not even aware of that. So I think, being 30 now, they got divorced. I believe my mom was 27 or 28. She already had 3 kids when she was 23. The generation was so different back then, especially in Colombia. It was very common to get married really young, which also I feel like is really common in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Like coming from Miami, everyone's like 23 and married, and out here, and I'm like, did I miss my train? Like, what?
Oh yeah.
So young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's good things to that as well.
Yes.
But I've known plenty of relationships in churches a lot of times that they just got married early to and that's the only reason they got married was for like sexual temptation more than anything else.
Yeah.
So there's good and bad to it because early on you get to spend your whole life with this person. You could have a lot of children and that type of stuff. But there's also the aspect of it needs to be who you should be with.
Yeah.
And not just you're getting married because you're told to marry early.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I also think it also like a part that plays into that is just like knowing who you are going into a marriage is important. And I don't know if at a very young age everyone knows that yet. And I feel like that can bring a lot of issues into a marriage.
That could be a whole societal discussion right there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we feel lost up until we're 25, 30 when back 50 years ago it seems like at least that they knew who they were by 18 or 19 years old.
Right.
So that's a whole societal conversation too.
That's
But
another
anyways,
one.
continue. Yeah.
See, we're gonna do this a lot, guys.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So yeah, just going back to that, I moved out here, and I went on a little tangent about that. But yeah, I moved out here. It'll be a year at the end of April. It's been an amazing year with a lot of ups and downs. Not a single regret, not a single thing I would change because it's made my story very freaking fun and really cool and just full of growth. Before that, I had a background in software sales, so I have always been like very customer facing, great with people my whole entire life. But it really everything just changed for me, I think, when I went through like a healing journey after I went through a really big breakup. So I was in a relationship with someone from the age of 20 to 28. So essentially like
Wow,
all
long
of my
time.
Yes, all
Wow.
of my 20s.
Formative years right there too.
Absolutely.
That's what we were just talking about.
Absolutely. Which is why I'm like, would I have been able to get married at that age? Hell no. Like no way.
Right.
It wasn't like a solid 8 years. It was like 2 different breakups, and that's just like a sign for me. Like looking back now, like I should have maybe not gone back multiple times, but hey, you live and you learn, right? And
Sure.
I am a middle child, like I said, and so I learned things the hard way.
Yeah.
And that's how it sticks for me. Like I just have to go through things myself. Which is why when people ask me for advice, I'm like, I'm gonna give you my advice, but I'm not gonna be mad if you don't take it, because I know that everybody learns differently. So you can use my example, and you could just do your own thing as well. And so that breakup, when that happened, was like extremely transformative for me. It made me really realize that I was carrying so much trauma, like my mom, like my dad, like the people in my family that had been carrying trauma from their parents and their grandparents. And I just felt so unlike myself. I felt so disconnected from myself. I started reading a lot of books. Right before my relationship ended, like a week before it ended, I had just completed the Live Hard program. So I had done like 75 hard, and then I did phase 1 and 2, and then I was like, I'm bored. I'm gonna do 75 hard again. So I did, and then I did phase 3, and then I finished it. And kid you not, like 4 days after that ended, my ex-boyfriend broke up with me, and I was like,
Ooh,
what?
that's actually very interesting.
Yes. So if you've ever done that program, you know the like mental transformation, like it's just, yes, you get a physical transformation too. And I was dealing with a lot of health issues that I have, like PCOS and endometriosis. I have hormonal imbalances, and I just ended in a really, really bad, like depression with like suicidal ideation and just really bad anxiety. I was just in a really bad place because my body was in a really bad state. Like my hormone levels were really off, and I don't believe in like medication. Like I believe in medication if you want to take it, but for myself, I believe in like lifestyle changes and just doing stuff that you can to change a lot and improve a lot of things. And I believe a lot of like hormonal imbalances can be treated that way because I've done a lot of it. Still have a long way to go, but I've come a really long way from where I was. And I was on a high when I got out of that, because I essentially like got myself out of my depression.
Right.
Like I refused to stay there. It got to a point where like anything I did, like I couldn't even leave the house. I was so okay. Like I even like fantasized with the idea of just like driving into like the side of like the highway, just because like I didn't want to live anymore. It was like so heavy, and I was like, absolutely not. Like I can't do that to my family. I can't do that to like anyone in my life.
Yeah.
And so I took on that challenge, and then I was doing so good. I was so proud of myself. I was like building myself up and just getting so mentally tough and really just growing as an individual, that it was so shocking for me that as I'm nearing the end of this like massive transformation, like the person that I thought I was going to do life with was like, peace, I don't want to do this with you anymore. And that was really hard for me to grasp my mind around, because I was in the best place I had ever been in my life up to that point. And he wasn't. And I'm like, how could you not want me? Like in my head, it felt like that, you know?
Well, and he probably saw you changing yourself mentally and physically, and there's some insecurity that came with that probably from his side of things as well.
Yeah.
You know, we've heard tons of stories like that. Or, you know, if you go through the 75 Hard Facebook group, and I literally yesterday I read a post just very similar. This woman, she was married and she was going through the program, and while on the program, her husband started drinking like crazy, and stuff at work was happening. You know, I think he got fired or he wasn't showing up or whatever it was, but there's insecurity there. They see you getting better, and they're making the conscious decision to not make themselves better alongside with you. And some people just can't handle that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the harsh truth about that too is that it's not like you can just pull him along, or pull, in a case of, you know, a girlfriend or a wife or whatever, you can't pull her along.
Right.
It's not, you're not going to sit there, have a conversation with them, and then they're going to change their mind.
Right.
It's not going to happen. More than likely, there's going to have to be a transformative event that happens, which is really sad that has to get to that point a lot of the times. So, I mean, it's harsh, but, you know, that sounds like it was for the best, because you were getting better, and then somebody that wasn't along with you then is now not in your life, which worked out well.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I will say, like, I have zero, like, I really do believe everyone's like, it's an easy answer to say that you have zero regrets or like that you wouldn't change anything about your life, but I genuinely wouldn't, because I understand that everything hard that I went through made me who I am today. I feel, and I've said this before, if you change anything about your story, you cheat yourself of a lesson that you were supposed to learn.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I think, harder to acknowledge that you would willingly put yourself through that hard time again, versus like saying, I would rather switch it up and like make it easier. Like,
Right.
I think it's harder to say, I don't think it's an easy answer. I think it's harder to say, like, I would actually willingly put myself through that crap again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's huge right there. I mean, that's so true though, because it's very hard to look back and have the self-awareness like that did shape me to a certain degree, you know? And again, that's the beautiful thing about Christianity, is that through Christ, you are forgiven as well. And again, that doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want and you're going to get forgiven.
Yeah.
Oh, I did something bad, forgiven. It's not what it is. It more is that you look back on it and now you then change your life because of those past experiences. And you know, wow, this loving creator takes care of me and cares
matter
about
what,
me and
yeah.
would forgive me for these, what I consider horrible transgressions. But at the same time, they built me, you know, to a certain degree. So,
Right.
And at
it's
the end
cool
of the day,
stuff.
like, he already knows your story. He knows your timeline. Like, he knows where
Yeah.
you're going to mess up and where he's going to need to step in a little more than usual. Like, he already
Right.
knows how it all turns out, which is, if you're struggling right now, if you're going through a moment where like you need a little bit of that reassurance, like lean on God. Like, he always has you and your story's already written. You just have to let him guide you, leave it up to him.
Absolutely.
So that's, I mean, when everything was going with my breakup, I didn't go that direction just yet. I was like, I have this thing about me where my life is crashing around me. I would just focus on myself. I'm like, I'm going to put myself through like the hard stuff, or like, I'm just going to focus on me and make myself and build myself up so well so that at least I know I'm good. Because if I'm good, I can take on anything.
Yeah.
And I did that. I isolated myself because now I know like isolation is very healing. People always wonder like why people isolate themselves, because it's healing. It allows you to just really be in tune with yourself. I isolated myself a little bit just to really understand what I was feeling, because I had gone through this breakup. That was the third time it had happened. And I was like, I need to stop repeating this pattern. This is a pattern that I've had. He was my longest relationship, but I had a previous boyfriend before him that also we had the similar patterns of like, he would cheat and I would say, okay, it's okay. Like, you can come back. Like, I had that pattern that was just continuing in my life. And like, you're getting older, right? Like, I was 28 at the time. And I was like, I don't want my life to continue on this path. I want to understand where this pattern came from. I want to understand how to rewrite it in my body, in my brain, in my nervous system. Like, I want to be able to like rewire everything about me, because this is not who I am and I know it.
Yeah.
Intuitively, like, I knew that who I was at that point was, even though I was great with having done that mental toughness program, I wasn't connecting with me, like me, myself.
Yeah. Like on the emotional side of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I went into a super deep healing. Like, I did the whole thing. I'm a big advocate of therapy. So I got back into therapy. I started reading a bunch of books. Again, like, isolated myself, started taking myself. I've always taken myself out on dates, and I started doing it like even more, just because I wanted to like be there for myself and just like give myself what I wanted from someone else. Because I wanted to just get to a point where like, you don't need anything from anyone else. When you find your counterpart, it's like great, right? You're not like putting all this pressure on this person to make you happy anymore, which I think is a big problem these days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't know. I dove fully into it, and I did a lot of healing. I did a lot of reflecting. I did a lot of reliving. So people always ask me like, what is healing? Like, how do you heal? And I'm like, you literally put yourself through the situation that like stunted your growth emotionally, or however it was, like whatever you went through as a child or whatever you went through as a teenager, like you have to put yourself through that again, and you have to feel those feelings, process it, and let things go.
Yeah.
So that's why healing is painful. Like, you have to put yourself through those hard moments again.
Sure.
I like that you actually give a description of it too, because a lot of people, I think they hear the word healing, trauma and whatnot. They're like, I don't know what that means. And I like that you actually give a description of how to go about it too.
Yeah.
Because I think because again, if people don't have a roadmap to a certain degree, or they, because it's much better to hear it from somebody like you that's done it, compared to just going on the internet and being like, what's healing?
Yeah.
And
Right.
you're going to find who knows what.
I'll find a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
who knows what on there. So I think that's a really big point right there, is actually these words that you're speaking of with healing and trauma. You actually have a definition and a description behind them. You actually have reasoning behind why you do these things that come along with it, which is cool. I think it's really cool.
Well, and that it also, I mean, you can even look at physical healing, like an injury. You know, like you tear your ACL, well, you can't never squat again. You have to go back to those movements. You have to put yourself through those things. So it almost is identical in the ways. You know, one's just emotional and internal, to whereas this one is physical and a physical injury, but you have to put yourself through that
and
process.
ACL, it's like you have this ACL surgery and they put you like right away to start bending your knee. So like imagine that, like the sooner you get to it, like the better it is.
Right.
Yeah. But I do want to say, like, I think it's good that I definitely agree with you, like the points of like having like the proper like terms and the definitions behind the terms. But I will say too, like, I'm only speaking off of like my experience because I also struggle when people are like, how do I heal through this? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'll tell you what I did. And then if it works for you, but like overall healing will look different for everyone, but it's the same. It's like the same, but different. You know what I mean? Like,
I love that caveat. Yeah. It's
like
important.
it's the same, like you're going to do the same concept, but it's going to look different for everyone because everyone is carrying something different.
Exactly.
And it's going to require for some people, it may be easier in your eyes, but for them it may be harder because it feels like heavier to them or whatever the case.
Hard is hard.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. Exactly.
It's all relative.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive in here. We got a few questions for you.
Let's go.
This first one definitely pertains to a lot of things that we talk about. We more so stay on the masculinity side of this, but where do you think modern day feminism has overstepped?
So many ways.
You're like, I have a lot of answers to that question, huh?
Well, so I think let's go like with the system, right?
Sure.
Whatever we want to call the system. Fucked up system. No, it's good.
It's great.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
It's,
like,
yeah,
Mitch, you can
super
cut that
beneficial.
out. Cut that out.
Yeah, we'll edit the system part out. Yeah,
Don't edit it out. People need to hear it.
Yeah, 100%.
So if at this point they're gonna turn it off, like they're missing out on all the juicy stuff.
True.
So but anyway. But so feminism. Okay, so the system, I feel like I watched a podcast recently. So there's this guy named Danny Morell. He's really good about he's very like energy and stuff like that, which is very different from like I believe when it comes to God, you don't really believe in like the energy and all of that. But he speaks very well on feminism, like femininity, masculinity, and like how people can heal those things. And he actually mentioned how the system or the government or whatever you believe in is set up to not have, like, because feminism, I believe, is people can see from an outside perspective. It's like pinning women and men against each other, right? Like that's essentially what it is. But when you go down deeper and you understand more about what femininity is and what masculinity actually is, it's actually like the system is attacking like everybody. They don't want us to connect with ourselves.
You would think you committed a mortal sin by hitting that button.
I'm not Italian. I'm Latina, but I talk with my hands.
It's okay.
Is this right?
Oh yeah. You got it.
You're good.
Yeah,
You're good.
you got it. Yep.
This is not my first podcast. I act like I've been here. What? But anyway, so yeah, I feel like he said it best. It's like the system is attacking everybody so that you're not in tune with yourself. So they don't want men in tune with themselves or women in tune with themselves. It doesn't matter like what you believe in. They just don't want us in tune with ourselves. Yeah. And why I think that that's huge is because when you're not aligned with who you actually are, you're so easily persuaded. You don't even know who you are, so you don't know what you stand for.
Right.
And that's when you're so easily manipulated. You can be made to believe anything. The biggest thing I believe in with feminism is that they have just really attacked what the woman actually is, with wanting women to just be more like men. But the truth is, like, I'm sorry, I don't know if I speak for everyone, but like, I don't want to be like a man. I think there's so many beautiful things about being a woman. Like, I love being a woman. I'm so sorry, I could not picture myself as a man. Like, you guys have your own shit to deal with, and I'd rather deal with mine. Like,
and we're the same way.
Exactly.
Like, I can't see myself being a woman.
Yeah,
like.
There's so many people out there that are like, I wish I had it like easier like men do. And I'm like, I don't think that they have it easier than we do. I think they have it different than we do. And that's something that needs to be acknowledged. Like, the war these days with like feminism, it's just, they want you so disconnected from, like, they want us so disconnected from ourselves. Because what happens when a woman is not connected with herself? She's not allowing a man in her life or anybody in her life to be connected with themselves either. Yeah. It throws off the balance of everything in life.
Yes.
Absolutely everything.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. And it's interesting because what you said when it comes to basically the system, government, like you said, whatever it is, them, the magical, whatever it is.
Them hoes.
The powers on, that powers that be. Yeah,
Darth Schwab and his minions.
Yep. It's interesting you said it because this guy, it sounded like he framed this really well, where he basically put it perfectly, where the idea of feminism in a lot of ways, or what it caused, I don't know if it was the idea of it, but it sounds like it kind of was, where it sounds like it confused men and women in every single way.
Absolutely.
And I would agree with that for sure. And what comes along with that is then you're like, you can't be okay with being a woman. You know what I mean? You sit there and you're like, maybe I should assume the masculine role. Maybe I should be like a little bit more, maybe I should be more of the feminine side if you're a dude or something like that. And then you start falling into these questionable realms of you don't even, and then it causes, gender confusion and whatnot. You don't even know whether or not you're a man or a woman. And so 100%, because that's, and again, we talked about the 70s and 80s, and that was a really bad time when it originally started. And then it's led from there, where it's true, because it's a lot of confusion. I think confusion is a great word for that, where everybody's just, is this how I be a man?
Right.
Is this how I be a woman?
Right.
That type of stuff. When, again, the Bible lays out the roles very clearly. You and I had a conversation about this at JT's wedding, actually, where the Bible lays the path out very clearly. It's not like it's a complex thing.
It's not.
And
It's
the cool thing about the Bible too is that it's in the masculine, feminine, mother, father, husband, wife roles. They're not meant to satisfy earthly pleasures when it comes to the Bible terms. It's meant to, satisfy your soul when it comes to getting to heaven in the first place. And again, that's kind of a weird way to phrase it, but you get where I'm going with it, where it's like husband and wife isn't some kind of happy-go-lucky skip in the park duty or whatever, or man and woman isn't a happy-go-lucky skip in the park duty. It's a duty. Like that's what it is. It's what you do. And again, it's laid out very clearly when it comes to the Bible. And again, I'm not a theologian, but when you read the text, it's pretty clear where it talks about leadership with men a lot of the times. That's a big thing where it comes at it. Talks about protecting. It talks about providing. For women, it comes with what you talked about earlier, the nurturing, the soft, the empathetic, that type of stuff. So it gives direction, but we've let society and earthly things dictate where we're at.
Right.
And that's, as we know, like we broke that connection with God. We're in sin.
Yeah.
So the world is in sin. So we shouldn't rely on what the world tells us a man and woman should be. We should rely on the Bible or what actual, and again, a lot of religions actually have, you and I kind of discussed it, they have very good roles for this stuff too, and very good paths for this too. So
there's very clear guidelines in a lot of different religions that don't go with what governments typically tell you or what society typically tells you. And there's a reason for that, right? But what you were saying about the confusion, I think that's the thing, because now there's like this whole wave of women just wanting to really reconnect with themselves and being like, well, like, why do I feel bad for wanting to be a stay-at-home mom? Why do I feel bad for wanting to be a mother, period? Like, I'm supposed to be like a hustle babe and this and that. And it's like
a boss bitch.
Yeah, a boss bitch.
Yeah. Right.
That's a term for it. Yeah.
And we can go, and that's a whole other conversation. It's like women and men were built different to, like, the work that we do and the work that our bodies can sustain are so different. And the extent of how we do all of that. But with with like women just wanting to reconnect with themselves, like women are just so lost and confused because it's like their inner beings is like trying to connect with them and tell them like, this is who you actually are. Like, this is who you are. But in their head, it's like this war of like, this is who you are versus like, no, this is what society's telling you to be. And everyone's like, who the hell am I? Who actually am I?
Right. Well, and we see it on the male side of it too. We got guys, it's like, is it okay for me to be competitive and to want to win and to want to be better? Competitive in sports, but just in the world as well. And it's like, yeah, you should. Is it okay for me to try and lead this group or lead this team or lead, the employees at work or whatever it is? Like, yes, it is okay. If you're feeling that sense, like, you should act on that. Absolutely. I directly coach a 13-year-old team. So I have 7th and 8th graders. And like, I don't know about you two, but when I was in 7th and 8th grade, like, I wanted to win. I wanted to win badly.
I wanted to win too.
Exactly.
100%. Yeah.
But now it's hard to get that out of these guys now, and of course there's things like, okay, do they love the sport? Do they not love the sport?
Yeah, but
that comes into play.
Society has like tried so hard to make men soft.
Yes, exactly. And they are. There's a lot of them out there, and it's
there's a lot of them out there.
It's like, dude, how are you not embarrassed to like walk around like that? Like,
150 pounds, just a victim.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right.
Essentially, yes.
yeah.
Mic drop.
Again, that's why we even. I mean, again, this is why he said that our expertise is strength training. Like that's a big part of how we talk to the masculine side of things. Of if you want to be a provider, strength training, training combat sports, even hitting a bag, like in your garage, boxing with a bag, that type of stuff. That shouldn't like because there was that article that literally said that physical fitness is toxic masculinity.
I know.
And
I've seen that.
it's like that is such a clear showing of their hand because it's so easy to conquer weak men. So easy to conquer weak men. And again, if you want to conquer society, what do? You attack the men. You weaken the men, you soften them up, and then you try to have women fill their shoes, but women can't fill their shoes because they're women.
Or you make the women think that they're not what they are supposed to be. So you give them like the masculine role. And so then the man, you can't have both in a relationship. You can't have two masculine. You can't have two alphas.
Right.
One's got to bow down. And if a woman is in her masculine role, the man's not going to step into his masculine role. He's just not going to.
And it's not some kind of subjugation. It's not like she's your slave.
Yeah,
that's
it's not.
That's not what it is.
Which I feel like that is such an old school thought. Even like hearing you say like punch a bag or like be like, get that out of you. Like, previous, I would have been like, that sounds so weird. But now, but my like the real like, it's like, yeah, you should be because that there's a drive inside of you intuitively telling you to do that for a reason. Like you should be getting that out of you.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And you even had it was interesting. You even talked about how you're like, yeah, I was working 12, 13-hour days for a while when you came to St. Louis. And it's like that wasn't necessarily your top desire. Was just slave away doing 12 to 13 hours a day and
It's
then
the immigrant
get
in
home.
me. I'm a little hustler. Hustler babe.
I mean, hey, that's again when it comes to immigrants, it's a good thing. It's a good trait to have. Like there's a conversation about that too.
But I was telling you guys before we started recording that I became so disconnected from myself because I was so exhausted. Like we're not supposed to work hard or work at all. We are supposed to, like, right? Society these days, like, you need to work to survive. Like, that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that later on.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
I'm telling you, this is a juicy one.
Yes.
This is gonna be a good one.
Yes.
But what were we talking about? Oh, yes. Okay. So like working in the exhaustion, like
yes.
I was so disconnected from myself because I was in my masculine like energy. Like I was surviving and I was working to survive, but I had that drive that was like over like throwing off the balance within me.
Yeah.
And I started to feel the burnout. And burnout is a real freaking thing. Like it's an actual real thing. It's not like a thought. It's not a mentality. Like it's a physical thing that requires you to rest. But I kept just like telling myself like, no, I have to keep doing it. I have to keep doing it. Even though like the inner me was like, you need to chill out. Like you need to rest. You need to have like a day to just rest. And it throws you off. Like when you start to step out of the energy that you're supposed to be in as a woman, everything in your life gets affected.
Yeah. And you were experiencing that here in St. Louis. You're talking recent here.
Yes.
Did you see it affect any relationships with friends or people that you met or anything like that?
It affected me, myself. Well, so not so much with everybody else because I feel like I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm pretty good about not dumping anything I'm dealing with onto anyone. Like I'm very good about acknowledging, like I think I have pretty good self-awareness after like everything I've been through and I've been very conscious of that to pick up on certain like triggers and patterns that I have now still, even when I'm like feeling all of those things where it's like, okay, Lau, maybe you need a couple hours by yourself to just like unwind. That's why I go for a walk every day. Like that's like my de-stress, my like.
I feel that. Oh yeah.
Love that.
Yes. Yeah. Because if I don't do that, if I don't take care of myself, I will take it on people around me. And no one in my life deserves to have that. Sure. Right? You have your appointed, I have my sisters, I have my mom, and I call them and I talk to them, but I'm not out here like treating them badly because I had a bad day. I'm just like, they're listening to you, they're venting, they're just offering you space and all of that. I have amazing friends out here that I have honestly just been blessed. God gave me the best friends out here. And, but I will say it did affect me, like me with myself. Like I felt disconnected from myself. Yeah. I felt like I just couldn't even hear myself. Like my intuition was so low.
And probably clouded
so hazy. Yeah. Like it was just, it didn't matter. Like, even though like logically I knew the answer to many things, I doubted myself. And a woman's intuition is always spot on. So if you can't hear it, something's off. Something's off.
It's like the mother's intuition concept. Yeah. Like I look back on it. I'm like, my mother saw a lot of things that she was very correct about a lot of times.
Always right.
Which
Moms
is
are always right.
Yeah, it's very intriguing you say that because I've never really dove into the concept of woman's intuition, but it's very accurate. It's a trait you guys have in a lot of ways to recognize that physical exhaustion to a certain degree that is also rolling over into mental exhaustion for you. And again, we can speak on that as guys in the health and fitness industry where that's a real thing. Like if you elevate the shit out of your cortisol levels and you're just always in a fight or flight state, you will get drained. There's no doubt about it. And again, we talked about in an episode of that Failures of Feminism episode we had that you mentioned, or you shared the hell out of, by the way, which is awesome. But that's another concept. But in that episode, we talked about how stress tolerance is different for men and women too. So that's a concept where it's like, there are some business owners that their female employees, they're like, I really need a day right now. I'm gassed. And they're like, oh, she's just being soft.
Yeah.
It's like,
don't be a little bitch. I'm like,
it's
what?
Like, it's like, dude, that's very normal for a woman to have that. Very normal.
Let's talk about this for 1 second because this is important. So women and men run on different cycles. You guys are on a circadian rhythm, right? So you guys recover after 24 hours. Correct. Like you can take a sleep, you could go to sleep and you can come back and your energy levels are essentially like replenished.
Yeah.
Women are on a menstrual monthly cycle. So like 28 to 34 days, I think is like the average. So our cycle differs in 4 different phases. And in each of those phases, our energy levels shift a lot. And it's not like just an emotional thing. Everyone's like, oh, she's PMSing, she's emotional. No, she's actually like going through some shit internally that's causing her to like not be able to show up as herself. During the like last 2 stages, like the stage right before your period and your actual period, I believe it's like your luteal phase and your menstrual phase. It requires a lot more rest of you. Like even your workouts should shift a little bit. You should never stop working out, but the intensity of life should shift a little bit while you're allowing your body to recover. We are so different. Like we're not the same.
Right.
And that is my problem with the feminism movement is that the feminist movement is that they want us to grind like the guys and being like as like hardworking as the guys and all of this, but it's like we're not physically built for that.
Right.
Doesn't mean that we can't do it because we probably can, but we're sacrificing something else just to be able to do that.
Right. Right.
That's a forgotten about point right there too.
Yeah.
The sacrifice aspect is that if you're going to try to climb the corporate ladder, then more than likely you're going to hit 35, 40 and be like,
I missed out on a big part of my life.
Was I supposed to have children?
Yeah.
Was I supposed to be a mother? Was I supposed to be a loving wife and whatnot? But now I'm 35, 40 and I can't find a man. And again, I don't even blame the woman in that scenario. I blame, again, what we talked about with feminism, the system, because it encouraged that. It encouraged her to do that. And now she's missed out on like her essential purpose when it comes to that. Like procreation is unbelievable. Like it's the most important thing. That is why women should be cherished too. Procreation is extremely important to bear children and bring great citizens into this world.
Yeah. I think it's also like the most beautiful thing that women have been given. Like I get so, like I see red when it's like birthing parent or breastfeeding. And sorry guys, I didn't want to bring that into it. But that's one thing.
Right now.
That is one thing that, man, in this day and age, like you don't want to say anything to piss people off, but that's the one thing that sets me off because I have sisters that I have physically like seen go through pregnancy, and I've watched my sisters like birthing videos and like watch them become moms and their bodies change and how like the babies really like gravitate towards a mother. Like, and I really struggle when today's society like tells women that like they're not the only ones giving birth. I'm like, absolutely the hell not. We're not going there.
Right.
Like we're not doing that.
There has to be a line drawn at some point.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. We've let it go so far.
But that's why
so far.
I think when people say like men are the target, like weak men, I don't think that's the case. I feel like women are the ones that are attacked because women are the portal to life.
Right.
I could see the argument there.
Yeah,
for sure.
I feel
I
like
could definitely see the argument there.
I really think that's it.
If you go after both, then they're not reproducing, you know? So like either way, you're losing out on future kids, future citizens, like you mentioned, you know, it's we know the plan here.
Yeah.
We know the plan
We're
here.
seeing in action.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Ooh,
right.
Man.
Your guys' faces both were like,
You said birthing parent, and I was just ooh, over here, just ooh, not happy at all.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's go on to the next question. So before we get stuck going an hour and a half on one question alone.
Yeah.
So because we could there
I
for
know.
sure. Now, next one we have for you is how do we solve modern dating cultures and the lies told around it? We've talked a little bit about this in our past episodes, but let's do a deep dive on it.
okay, so what do you guys mean by the lies? Like, what lies are you guys referring to?
Yeah. So a couple of the lies that come to mind are, again, that marriage isn't important. That's a big one right now.
Reproducing isn't important.
Reproducing is important.
Yeah.
You should have.
You can sleep around freely without
There you go.
consequence.
That's a big one. Dating apps, is that a good or bad thing? You know, is there use for those sometimes? Are they more negative than they are good? Is social media affecting dating? We could go down whatever path you want there.
So I think a good, not blanket statement, or I think a good general answer to this is I think people really need to get their shit together. And I
So
think
true.
like men need to get shit together. Women need to get, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't think it's like one sex needs to do that like more than the other, one gender. I think it's just like people, period, need to take care of themselves and really figure out who they are, because then they wouldn't fall for shit like that.
Right.
And my biggest problem around dating culture is like how easy like hookup culture is. It's a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's so bad. And like I'm an open book. I'm extremely transparent. Like I haven't slept with anyone since basically like my relationship ended.
Yeah.
And that's very intentional for a reason, because I'm like, the older that you get, the more that you realize too. And I feel like the more that you heal, the more that you realize like your body really is like something that you should cherish and only share with that person that you know you're going to end up with. And I also think that the reason why people are sleeping around so much is because they're looking for so much external validation, because they don't have it from themselves.
Yes.
That's where the dating apps come into play. I downloaded Hinge out here, and my friends were like, "Go on a date." I went on one date, and I deleted the app. I was like,
Man, that bad, huh?
This is not for me. I don't want to touch it. It wasn't. It just wasn't for me. There was a lot of things that I was like, this is just not aligning, and it's okay. That's part of dating. I don't think dating is a bad thing. I think you're supposed to date to figure out what you want. If you like the person, you're supposed to get to know people, right?
Sure.
And I think dating will also teach you what you actually want. I feel like everyone just dates just to find the person you're going to marry, but I feel like you miss out on like learning the lesson of like, well, this person has this quality that I wasn't even aware that I like. Like maybe that's something that I'm looking for in like the next person or something. Like it's a learning thing that you can do as long as you do it, I feel like with the proper parameters, right?
Controlled.
Sure. The
Yep,
right-
controlled
Yes.
boundaries, 100%.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had friends when I went through my second breakup with my big relationship that they were like, just go out and fuck around and sleep around. And I was like, I can't even do that. Like, that's just not even me. Like,
Yeah.
I've just never, and I'm not shaming anybody who has done that or does that. Honestly, like, I mean, it's literally your life, do your thing. But like, there's a reason why you're doing that. Like, dig deep. Honestly, like, look internally, like, why are you doing that? What void are you trying to fill? Because you're never going to fill it with somebody else. And
they wonder why they still feel empty all the time.
Yeah.
It's all those things you're
100%.
mentioning.
yeah.
Right.
So I will
100%.
say, because I talked about this with you guys in the beginning, it's the patterns that we've adapted throughout our lives that lead us to this, the problem in modern dating. We are just, a lot of people are operating unknowingly with traumas and patterns that they've picked up from their childhood. So it's making them not be themselves.
Right.
I think when I moved out here, the biggest thing I learned about myself is that people always tell me, they're like, you have like this light about you. You have this like light energy and you're just like very welcoming. And not that I haven't been like that, but for the majority of my life, I wasn't like that because I was carrying so much stuff that was not letting me shine through. I couldn't connect with people honestly and true. Like I couldn't actually connect with people because I wasn't actually myself. I was like putting on this like role of somebody else that I wasn't, and just trying to look for validation. I wanted to say the right things. I wanted the right people to like me. I wanted the right friend groups to like allow me in. I wanted to be invited to the right things. But like none of those things actually align with what I wanted. It's just what I thought I wanted from my childhood. I wanted a lot of like acceptance and validation, and just I wanted to be like loved. I wanted like a lot of love because when I was younger, not that I wasn't loved, but there was just I was a tough kid. I was going through a lot of stuff, and my parents didn't understand it. They weren't understanding their own stuff. So my body just adapted to like seeking external validation and people pleasing.
Almost a survival state, like we talked about earlier.
right.
It's a survival mechanism, absolutely. And that went off into like my relationships. That affected the way that I was attracting people. That affected who I was attracting. I was attracting men in their feminine energy because I was in my masculine energy.
Ooh.
I really was. I was hyper independent because I felt like if I was independent and I was in control, no one could hurt me.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a
But then I would
big one right
continuously get hurt, and then my feminine side would come out and be like, "It's okay, come here. Like it's okay. Like I still love you after you went and cheated on me. Like come on back. What the hell? Why did no one tell me anything before?"
Why did no one tell me about this? Come on.
Yeah. So I feel like that's a loaded question, honestly.
Well,
It is for sure.
It really is.
You know, I want to go back to something too about within that question, then within your answer there, is you were talking about sex and how important it is as well. It's a sacred thing. That's what a lot of people don't even think about.
Yeah.
That's the downside about casual sex and hookup culture is that, again, there's a reason, like Wurtz said, there's a reason you feel empty because it drains you essentially because you are giving a piece of yourself to each person you have sex with.
You're giving a piece of yourself, but you're also taking on a piece of someone else.
Exactly.
And that's like,
Yes.
I don't think people realize that. It's a transfer of like energy.
Well,
Yes.
I mean, and not to mention hormones.
Yeah.
I mean, pair bonding is a real thing. It happens for both men and women, even more for women though, too.
Yeah, it's so
then
strong on
casual
women.
sex hurts women even more too, which is why it's so funny. Like we talked about the red pill culture and how it's like, well, to be a high value man, you need to wait till 35 to get married. You need to have slept with 50 women. You need to have $100,000 a year in your bank account and whatnot. You need to be making $100,000 a year.
The Lulu.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd seen any of that, but
haven't.
that is like the red pill space that took over for a while in the last like 3 to 4 years. There's now been a revival of Christian masculinity in a really good way, which is like combating it, which is really cool to watch actually. But
That I have
anyways,
seen.
yes. So and that's great stuff. Christian masculinity all day, win W. But that's the thing because these red pill men, they talk about, sleep with 50 women so you get the experience. And then one, pair bonding's still a real thing for men. So it hurts men very detrimentally. Then you end up destroying 50 women that you slept with as well. Then you end up asking for what, a virgin wife and a beautiful untouched virgin or whatever, but you created 50 women that are now casual
You
sex
tainted
enjoyers.
like 50 women essentially.
Tainted, essentially,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
by doing this. So it's a complete joke. To casual sex, just it doesn't. The only benefit you get is the physical pleasure in the moment. That's it. That's the only benefit you get out of it, and that's it.
Not always. I'm just kidding.
Right, well, oh, wow, that's true.
Poor fellas.
The honesty is important. So
Let's stick it in the, let's cut it and turn the knife
Yes.
a little bit, you know?
But again, that actually is a thing too, because that's why sex and marriage is so important and why the Bible talks about the confines of marriage with that, because sexual pleasure is also better in marriage as well.
It's supposed to be,
Every single Christian married couple that talks about their sexual life says it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's very good because they are one. They are one flesh. That's the idea of it. Sex is not just to be thrown away and tossed out the door. That is not what it is. So that's a huge point right there.
Yeah.
But I feel like I was going to hit on something else.
You
Anyways,
were.
Continue.
It'll come
Yeah.
back. But
Yeah,
I
it'll
will
come
say
back.
this. I have a friend that I talked to recently, and he's hilarious. So he's on his single like
Just a funny
rampage
dude.
right now. No,
Yeah.
he's like in his single like, I'm just doing my thing, and I'm like, are you sure you want to do your thing? Like, like why don't you do your thing about like that's. He always makes fun of me because I'm like, what are you going through? Like he's like, stop it, you're not my therapist, and I'm like, I'm your friend, I want to help you. Like you're clearly like going on all these dates and doing all these things. You're again trying to fill a void. You're trying to do something that is not going to fix the problem. And I asked him, I was like, is it true? Because for women, sex is very like emotional, right? You do get attached, or like you bond with that person, and you start like drawing all these pictures in your head of like, oh my God, he's the one. And then that's where like all the heartbreak starts to happen. And
That would be oxytocin. the
Exactly.
hormone.
It's
The
an
release of
actual, like-
oxytocin. It's a real thing.
exactly.
100%.
It's science.
Yes.
It's science.
Yes.
And I asked him, I was like, is it actually like that for men? Because growing up, I always heard like, oh, men can have sex with like zero emotion. And he's like, actually, Lau, the older that I've gotten, he's like, I don't think that that's the case. And I was like, I don't think so either. So we looked it up, and that's when I realized I'm like, it's a real thing for both. Like, so it doesn't matter. Like I don't know. I just think I went on a couple dates out here because I was like, you know what? I was intentionally single for like almost 2 years after my breakup, just so that I could really focus on myself. And then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to like get out there and see what does Missouri have? You know, I've been dating Miami boys. Let's see what Missouri has.
We have country cowboys here in Missouri.
There's some interesting people.
We just
here.
rednecks. That's all of us.
It's straight up just like no. Well, my therapist always tells me, she's like, "You're gonna find your cowboy." I'm like, "There's none here." Like, I think I came to the wrong Midwest.
You do
not
live
the
in
city.
downtown.
I was gonna say.
I do.
I was gonna say not in the city.
I do.
Yeah.
There's interesting people in the city.
Very interesting people.
I need to get myself out here, but
a lot of birthing parents in the city.
Oh.
Sure, damn it. You said the two words.
It's not wrong though.
no, you're not. You're not wrong.
100%. It's not wrong.
It's not wrong.
Lord.
But what was I saying? Oh, I went on a couple dates and I had like the tough conversation of like, what is your view on masculinity and what's your view on femininity? And I've had
huge conversation to have.
Yeah, and my friends are always like, "You have those conversations?" And I'm like, "Girlfriend, of course I do. Like, that's important. If you don't have those conversations, you have no foundation for a relationship, because I'm making sure that the person that I end up with or date or whatever essentially aligns with my views. And if they don't, that's okay. I made a friend, maybe, you know, like that's okay. Or I learned something different. I got to see somebody else's different perspective, because I don't like to think that my perspective is the only right one. Most of the time it is. But
damn.
just kidding. I'm totally kidding. But no, I'm actually very open-minded. I'm actually like, if you can make a solid argument, like I may disagree, but I'm like, I respect you for like having a solid stance on your belief. Cool. Like, you should go hard for your beliefs. But I had some crazy conversations with some guys that were like, yeah, you know, like I'm masculine, like, yeah, like I can do like hard, and I'm just like, oh no, you don't get it.
Nope.
You don't get it. You don't understand what it is. And he's like, and then this one particular guy recently was like, you know, but I also just feel like I'm very feminine. I feel like I'm very in touch with my emotions. And I was like, I think that you don't understand the role. Like, I don't think that he fully understood, because every man should have a particular amount of, or like a small amount of like femininity in you, so that you can make space for your partner's emotions and for your own emotions. Because I believe that an actual truly masculine man is emotionally intelligent and emotionally mature. You make space for your emotions. You don't suppress them, and you don't like push them down. You acknowledge them, and you like process them, and you are able to like do something with that.
Right.
But
Which
also
is much
sure
easier
that guy-
said than done.
much easier.
yeah,
Much easier
yeah,
said.
For men and women.
Yes.
I
Right.
was like, this is my exit.
Wow.
Yeah, this is
Whoa.
so. If you are dating in today's age, like, ask the hard questions, because yeah.
This man's a homosexual.
Well, I actually like weird. Missouri has been interesting for dating. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
it sounds like it.
I don't know
Damn.
what is going on. But granted, I think most of them have not. And I haven't dated a lot. I've gone on like 4 or 5 dates, but the majority have not been, like, they've been transplants, so not from like Missouri, but still.
I like this though. I like this conversation because it goes back to the dating app thing we had the conversation about too, where I think dating apps, you can use them in the correct way if you're very, like, let's say on Hinge. Like I personally have used Hinge myself.
Yeah.
And I have been very direct in my prompts. I put very direct things in the prompts. The pictures, like, yeah, like whatever. Like, you put some good pictures or whatever. That's,
Do you have one of you holding up a fish?
No, I don't actually. Yeah, I don't. I like the fish here and there, but I'm not that type of guy. Yeah, but
Good.
yeah.
That's like a red flag.
That is a huge
It's a
conversation
red
with dating
flag.
apps. It's super funny.
Be honest right now. Have you ever fished in your life?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't know if you had.
Oh yeah. I actually do enjoy it. It's just that it's very hard for me to sit there.
I was gonna say I can't see
Yeah.
you sitting still doing that.
It's tough, but it is cathartic when I have done it. So
Am I out of bounds here, Mitch?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
again, I have fish. So it's true, but no. So that was what I found works really well, is like the two things you just said. One, if you're going to be dating on a dating app, and this goes for dating without a dating app too, but you need to be very direct on the prompts. You need to be very open about the fact that you're looking for a leader if you're a woman. You're looking for a feminine woman if you're a man, that type of thing. But then on the date, it should be the first 1 or 2 dates minimum the hard conversations happen.
Yeah.
Because personally, I'm not spending time like getting to know somebody for 6 months, and I'm like, well, like maybe I could change her from her feminist ways or something like that.
No.
That's
no one's job. You should not be changing.
that's not a useful use of my time at all. It really isn't. And so I really think that's very important, is be very direct in what you want. And again, it's okay to want those things, because you should. Like, that's a man, woman, as we've talked about. They're very different. And it's okay to say, I want to build a large family on your prompts if you want to. Or on the first date, you want to be a stay-at-home mom?
Yeah, you just
Ask the question.
Knock those questions out.
Yeah.
Because if they don't align, then everybody saves their time too. And you're respectful of everyone's time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that
100%.
can be said for anything in today's world too. Like stand for what you believe in. If you believe in it, stand for it. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. Own it. Be okay with that. Express your thoughts and your opinions. Be educated on it.
Yeah.
You know, don't just say, well, Fauci said it was right, so that's what I believe. You know, we know how that goes. But, you know, you mentioned it earlier, like be an open book, be open-minded, because so many people nowadays, oh, well, you don't agree with me, so I hate you.
Yeah.
We can't even
It's
talk.
such an immature way of thinking.
It is.
Right.
It is. It's very immature, and I think that's why everything is so polarizing now when most of it doesn't need to be. You
Yeah.
know, just use logic, and a lot of these things can just go away.
Yeah.
Well, like, and like ultimately, like they want everyone, the system, they want everyone disconnected. So like in any single possible way, they want you fighting with your neighbor.
Right.
They don't want you to like see eye to eye or even respect that person's view. Like there's a reason why there's options. Not everybody's right. Like, and not everybody's going to believe the same thing you believe. And that's fine. Like I have friends from all walks of life and I respect that because it makes my life rich, because it makes me more diverse. Like it allows me to see things differently. Like I don't want to be in a room where I think the same as everyone or everyone thinks the same as me. That would be so boring.
It would be.
It gives me like Stepford Wives like vibes, and I don't want that.
It's just an echo chamber.
Exactly.
Don't be in those.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know? Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And we even have the conversation where the important thing, not everybody has to agree on everything, because there are above the line issues and there are not very important under the line issues.
Right.
But there should be societal norms, like family should be very important.
Yep.
Safety should be very important, as downtown St. Louis.
Freedom.
Freedom should be very important, especially as a country established as the Constitution. You know, so those are pretty obvious ones, and those should be pretty held across the board standards. And again, they've tried to whittle those three down in a lot of ways. And so I don't think it's a tough conversation, what you guys are talking about right now. It's the logically have disagreements, but keep the same moral standard, because that's how a society functions too, by the way. Like if there's not actual moral standards in society, it crumbles.
Which there's not right now.
Exactly.
There's birthing,
I mean,
birthing
again,
parents.
like,
Like
there's
that's your
birthing parents. Yeah,
perfect
exactly.
example. There's
Yes.
guys competing in girls' sports, and it's just all these things.
Yeah.
You know, there's furries in schools. The amount of kids that I train that tell me they have furries at their schools, it's unbelievable.
I've had people tell me that their kids' schools have litter boxes in the bathroom,
Yes.
and I'm like, what is going on?
These
like,
kids
how are we
walk around
not
with
talking?
tails.
But why are we saying, oh, you think you're a cat? Here's a litter box. Versus like, why? What is going on?
Right.
Like, what is
Are you
actually?
okay?
Are you
How's your
okay?
home life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
This is not normal. Like no one should be thinking that they're a pet.
Right.
Like I get you have imaginary friends and stuff when you're young, but that's when you're innocent and you're a kid, and
Sure.
that's why kids are being targeted even more and more the younger they are, and
Because
so,
they can influence them early. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. What you said.
Yeah. But so what you were saying about like just like standing for what you believe in, like that just all goes back to like the healing thing again. Like you have to know who you are to know what you're standing for. You have to let go of stuff that you're carrying. Like for the longest time, I thought that a man would never love me because when I was younger, my dad, like looking back, now I know why, but like my parents got divorced or separated at first before they got divorced. And then my dad was supposed to pick us up every other weekend and he would just not show up sometimes. So I started resenting the male figure in my life. And then I had a great stepdad, but we were also in the transition of like my parents getting together and having 6 kids. And there was a lot of like, just it's normal, right? You're blending a family. That is so difficult. It's so a lot of personalities. We're 6 girls. Okay, like think
6
Brady
girls.
Bunch. Yeah.
Wow.
So just
That's
imagine.
freaking awesome.
Amazing. Yeah.
that's
I love
awesome.
my family. It makes me
Yeah.
want to have so many kids. But
Yeah.
like that transition is difficult. So I felt like for a while, for the pivotal years of my life, I didn't have like a strong male figure. So I was like, I don't trust men, this and that. And I carried that my whole entire life in the beginning.
Oof.
I never was very extreme on like I hate men, but like deep down I just couldn't trust men.
Yeah.
And the reason why I couldn't trust men is because the masculine in me, I couldn't trust.
Yeah.
Because it was lying to me. Like it was basically telling me like, you're not safe and you're not this and that. But it's like, I was just disconnected from myself.
Right.
Which is where the disagreements start to happen. Like with people in society, like you don't believe what I believe and you're wrong. No, like it's okay to believe different things. You may be right. You may be wrong, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like it's just.
Above and below the line issues there.
Right.
Yeah.
And not to mention in your situation as well. I mean, immigration had to have made that
Tough.
way more of a tumultuous situation between your mom and your dad. It had to have.
Yeah.
So there was also factors there too that then affected you. And again, that's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's not really even necessarily your parents' fault. That's
No.
immigration's like a very legal immigration is a difficult process, which you could have a conversation about that
Yeah.
and making that more.
But they
of
were
a
also
streamlined.
young.
But yeah,
They were young.
exactly.
They were young.
Yes.
And then my mom came from, so my mom's father was an alcoholic. And then my dad had like some interesting things happen in his childhood as well. So like they were both carrying things. And then we moved to a completely new country because my parents realized Colombia, there's no future there for your kids at that point in time. And really, truly, like third world country, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place, but it's a very different lifestyle than it is here.
Sure.
And that's why like when people talk about like, I'm not even gonna go on the open border because we're gonna go in, but because I was an immigrant, I'm
I
like,
was say that'd be a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but like it's bringing it's like coming to a new place with X amount of money, right? You're capped. You only have what you bring, and then you have to figure out a way to survive out here. We did come legally. We applied for asylum, so basically we applied for like permission to be here with the government because we were in danger over there. And then this was like during the time of like a lot of kidnapping for ransom and all of that, and there was people like in like our close circle and families and stuff going through all of that. Like one of my uncles had to like basically like get his kids out to Spain like super fast because he was being targeted, and it was just very scary. It was a very scary time. My parents did the best that they could, but like throw that into the mix, right? All the stress of that. You're in a brand new country. You're in a brand new like society essentially. You don't understand the language. You have to put your kids into school. You have to provide for them. You have to make sure there's food on the table. Your kids come home with homework and you can't even help them because you don't understand. And then your kids learn the language faster than you. So now you're relying on your kids to read to you late notices for payments or just like the map to get around. You're as a family getting lost in dangerous neighborhoods, and you're watching your parents who are supposed to be the ones that keep you safe, flustered and scared. And it's like, it throws off everything. And I think I told you guys this before I started, but your nervous system like basically sets up and like adapts certain patterns, like emotional patterns and coping patterns up, like I believe by the time you're 7 years old, based on like the environment that you've been in. So just imagine like going through all of that. And then like, those are my coping mechanisms, like to like look inward and depend on myself and not depend on anyone else. That hyper independence made me, for the majority of my childhood, like super defensive. Like my sisters would look at me funny and I would get like all up in their faces. Like, why are you looking at me like that? Like I was just very defensive, and I was very just overprotective because I wanted the validation. If they made, even if they slightly made fun of me, like it would like break me down. Like it would kill me. And now it's like if someone makes fun of me, I'm like, what are you saying? Oh, I laugh too. Let's laugh together. What are you?
Or you'll roast them back. Or
I'll just roast them back. Yeah, like I could care less now. Like I'm the most me now because I shed all of that weight that I had that was literally holding me in that place.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool.
And at the same time, your parents were also trying to continue a healthy relationship while all that stuff that you just listed was going on. So that's another thing too. Like how difficult is that?
Right.
And again, if we have a society that encourages family and community, you guys would have had a support system. But instead, because the U.S. is continuing to go the opposite way negatively, you guys didn't have any support. You guys were just here and figured out.
Well, and when you were here, you're in Miami too. There's a million different cultures, a million different types of people down there. That city never sleeps.
We didn't have anyone else. Like, it was tough. Yeah,
I've been there once, and quite frankly, it was during the daytime. But like, even still, that city is buzzing.
It's always going
all the time. It's kind of cool, like as a tourist, but like that's another thing that adds into all of that too. You're in a place that not only you don't know the country or the language, but there's probably 50 different languages being spoken in your neighborhood alone. Yeah. You know, and all kinds of people and whatnot.
Even if you're speaking Spanish, there's like Dominicans, Colombians, Venezuelans, Puerto Rican, everyone has their own different Spanish. So then I'm coming from the Colombian Spanish that I know, but also like the culture that I know, and every Hispanic culture has their own thing. And I remember going to school, like I think I moved 11 times in like a matter of a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. My mom counted one. So we moved a lot. It was, I think it was a year and a half or something like. It was like it was a lot of times in like a very short period of time. My mom was like, "Oh my God, I had no idea." And going from school to school.
I've moved once in my life, Lau. Or no, technically 2 times when I was like 2 years old.
And it was really because we were going from
11 times a lot.
That's a lot, yeah. We were going from like house to house, and then like we couldn't afford that place. So we had to go somewhere else, or then we had to stay with someone else. And then it was schools. It was schools more than anything. We moved schools a lot. You had to switch schools a lot, and I don't even know why. I'm assuming it partially like the district, but also like sometimes we would slightly move to like a different apartment, and then we'd have to go to a completely different school. And it was really hard for me to connect with people because I adapted the mentality of my environment of I'm going to move again. So don't get close to anyone. What's the freaking point?
Yeah. Well, we've kind of already dove into what this third question is going to entail, but just so there's obviously a lot of problems going on in the U.S. and then in the world as well. But that's politically, economically, socially, all of the things. There's tons of them. What do you think the women's role is in fixing those? Because we see the male role as kind of leading the charge, holding the line on that line that you guys were defining there, holding that line, standing up for the correct thing, standing up for morality, using logic in these conversations and in these situations and whatnot, getting people in the government that have the best interest of the citizens in mind, which I don't know if that will ever happen because it seems like, these people, they're campaigning or they start at the local level and they're great people. Then they get up there and then just immediately they get corrupted because the paycheck is nice,
right?
Or whatever.
Yep.
But that's what we see on the male side as our role, especially being in our 20s right now. Like we're the next generation, all of us in this room, we're the next generation of leaders.
I'm still in my 20s.
Absolutely you are. Yes.
Like
remember a lot younger than JT.
Right. But, we're the next leaders. We're the next parents, should be. We're the next ones to set the example for the future generations, So there's a lot of pressure that we feel as males because that's how we see our role.
Yeah.
But what do you kind of see the female role as?
I talked about this in the women's group that I used to host at my old job, and it was basically just like reconnecting with ourselves. So this is like the recurring theme for everything. I honestly think that that's the solution. But for women, it's just like reconnecting with who you are and stepping aside from what society wants for you. Because we know what we want for us. You said it, a woman's intuition is spot on. We know what we want for ourselves. We just need to let ourselves hear it. And you can only hear it if you turn down the noise with everything else. So I think the more that we connect with ourselves, the more that we're like, you know what? Like that's why there's such a big wave right now with like women wanting to be like homestead. Like they want like a homestead life, right? Like they want to like be at home with their kids and live on a farm and wear the dresses and stuff. And I get that that's like not a realistic thing for everyone, but I see the trend on like Instagram and just in life, like women want that because it's calling to them because that's that is our like innate nature.
It's your nature. Yeah,
yes.
Right.
So I think the biggest thing like is just reconnect with yourself. And when you're in that place, like I was telling the guys upstairs before we came down to start recording that I was going through something that just happened like in my life. And I feel like it kind of threw me off from being able to hear my intuition. And I can call it because I wasn't doing things that were good for me because I wasn't in that space. But now that I'm aware of it, I'm like, oh no, I'm getting back to where I want to be because then no one can tell me what I can and can't do. Nobody can tell me what I should be believing in. Like I am walking the life that is very aligned to me. And I feel like that is what will fix a lot of the issues in society. I really think that that's...
So what are some ways, and again, it's different for everyone as we've covered, but what are some ways you do that for yourself to get yourself back in tune with your intuition?
Myself.
Yeah.
So spending more time alone for me personally, like just that.
Solitude is so important.
And
it's so
people
powerful.
People are so scared of it. People are
100%.
so scared of it. People are so scared of sitting in silence.
Yes. I mean, we right now, we're finishing up a book called Stillness is the Key. Is it Ryan Holiday? Is the
Correct.
I
author?
love him.
We're in a book group that we just started with a close friend of ours, but that is obviously like stillness is the key. That's the title right there. So a lot of what this book talks about is just that, like being alone, being okay with being alone, being okay with silence, and there's chapters, like one of the chapters is take a walk. You mentioned it earlier. These guys know, like, I love going on walks by myself, whether it's late at night, daytime. It doesn't really matter for me personally, but that is where I get some of my best thoughts best recaps of things that have just happened, whether it's just that day or different situations or whatever. But like solitude is so important. It's so powerful.
It's so key.
Yes, it's
so
scary,
key.
But it is. It's absolutely
It's not
so
even
key.
scary. It's uncomfortable,
Yes.
and people don't want to be uncomfortable
100%.
because when you're not distracted, when you're standing in solitude by yourself, you have to face the shit going on in your head.
You have no
And that's
other
I feel
option.
like that's where it begins. I genuinely think. Like I'll go for a walk in the park, and sometimes I'm playing music, sometimes I'm listening to like a sermon or something, and I'm just like and then there's moments where I'm just like maybe I need silence. I just need to walk in complete silence. And my thought process is so different, but it's just like, and especially this day and age, like our phones are so addictive. Whether like you're addicted a little bit or a lot, you're still addicted to some degree.
100%.
Separating yourself from that addiction, separating yourself from like just having the need to be like around people and just being able to be in your own presence empowers a person so much. It really does. I think like being alone is a gift. I really think that whether you're in a relationship or not, like I'm single right now and I feel like singleness is a gift because it's allowing me to really reconnect with myself.
Yeah.
So that I'm a big advocate of. I said it earlier, I'm a massive advocate of therapy. I think therapy is amazing because it helps you realize like it's very, it's catered to the individual, right? So like I can give a lot of advice, but it may not work for someone, but your therapist will be able to help you like unlock certain things that are getting in your way of like your own potential and like your own, like your true self essentially.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
So what do you think the key is? I've never been in therapy. These guys haven't either, but what do you think the key is to getting it to work? Because you do hear stories all the time, like therapy didn't do anything for me. I was just paying this person for years and nothing ever changed. What do you think the key is to getting it to work?
It's like dating. So you have to find one. I think you have to find the right therapist. So people will give up because they're like, oh, that therapist sucked. I didn't align with them. It's like dating. You're supposed to ask them questions as well. Like, so for me, when I went into my first therapy session, like ever, like 6 years ago, or 8 years ago at this point, I don't even know. Lost the track of time. But I asked my therapist a lot of questions because I was like, if I'm going to take your advice, I need to know that like I respect and value what you have to say. But apart from that, like I want to know if your delivery is going to help me. So I didn't want someone that was like, oh, I support you. Like, this is, because there's therapists that are like that. And they're just a lot more soft. They just kind of guide you through your own conversation because therapy, ultimately what it is you are speaking your problems out loud. You're hearing them and your therapist is just helping you navigate through things. They give you resources, but they don't tell you like, this is your solution. They're helping you unpack and they're helping you understand like why you are the way you are, why you think the way that you do.
Yeah.
And so it's like they're masters, like navigators of conversation. They're very good at that. That's what they're supposed to be good at. But I needed someone who's like honest. Like I needed like a heavy hitter, like give it to me straight.
Direct,
and I was looking for that. And my first therapist was a guy and he was great. He focused a lot on like women. Like I was fascinated by the way that women thought and he had the perspective of a man too. So for me, it was very insightful to learn both. I stopped working with him after like being with him. I think it was almost 2 years. I felt like I was in a good place. I stepped away from therapy. I kept doing a lot of the work on my own that he gave me to do. And then when I found my new therapist, I actually signed up through BetterHelp and they make you fill out like a questionnaire and they like match you with someone. I hated the person they matched me with. I read the guy's profile. I had one session with him. I was like, absolutely hell no. Therapy is not cheap, but it's also not super expensive. Like BetterHelp is this is not an ad. I should
Code Lau.
I should get paid. I'm going to reach out. I should.
So stupid.
Lau for the win. But I need to get a code for that because honestly, I put everyone onto it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just give it a chance. It's finding the right person. So I dated around. I shopped around. I wanted to make sure that like who I was going to open up my deepest, darkest secrets, the most vulnerable me was going to be someone that I believed that could help me.
Yeah.
And I switched 3 times before I found my therapist. And now I'm obsessed with her because therapy, they are going to start you off in the beginning stages with the background of your life, your childhood, your parents' childhood. They want to understand what makes you you because that is so pivotal. That's so important in your life. So you don't want to have to see that same story over and over and over again.
Sure.
So then you just kind of date a little bit until you find the one and then you stick to the person that feels right. And then the second thing I feel like is you have to be patient. Like you didn't, not that you like broken, but like you didn't end up in the place that you're at overnight. And you guys get it. Like with like physical transformations, you didn't gain 30 pounds overnight. So you're not going to lose it overnight.
Right.
Same thing. You have to be patient. You have to know that it's a journey and it's a process and it's not cute. Like healing is not a pretty thing. Like I said in the beginning, it's ugly and it's hard.
Yeah.
But you have to know what you're going into it with so that you know that when it gets hard, it's like the bigger picture. Like I'm going to be better.
Why?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So it's just, those are my biggest advice. Like date around and find the one that just feels, that aligns with you. And then the second thing is just like, be patient. Like it's going to take time. Like your healing takes time, but it's the most beautiful thing that you can do for yourself. And like, I always say this, I always like post about this when I have therapy. It's like, I'm a better me for myself, but I'm a better me through therapy because I care about my future children. I care about my future husband. I care about my future friends. If one day I'm a business owner, I care about my like employees. Like I do this for myself now because I know it's going to pay off in the future. And that is so important to me.
Yeah.
It's super important to me.
I think that's a big point there is the vetting aspect of it because you're essentially vetting who you're choosing as a therapist there as well.
Not everyone's going to be a match for you.
Well, and the thing is too is as the matches are going to be different for men and women too. That's another thing too is like, again, male and females are different. So because of that, therapy is going to have to be treated differently for a male and a female as well. So you have to be very, especially with a therapist, you have to be very, very particular about who you're choosing. 100%. At least that from what I've heard, I've heard the horror stories as well. Sure. You know, I've heard that like I've essentially talked to dudes who are in therapy and they're essentially very feminized from it and whatnot too. So there's that aspect too. And
I have heard that too.
So, and again, that's anecdotal, no doubt. But the point remains is that it's a vetting process like anything else in life. If you're going to use it as a tool, you need to vet 100%.
Like job interviews too.
Yeah.
You have to interview them too.
Yeah.
Do you want to work with them or not?
Right.
Yeah.
Do they does that company stand for what you stand for? Things like that, you know?
Wait, that's a really good point. Actually, they said about therapy of like feminizing men because I do hear that a lot. I hear that that's like the biggest hesitation for men. But I think that I could see that because I think women are more emotional. Well, I know women are more emotional and we're more in tune. We're more able to open up, but not because we're women. I think it's just like, I think it's person by person. Like I'm highly in tune with my emotions. I just am. And then I have some sisters that are very, very in tune and I have some sisters that are more reserved, but they're still emotional. Like everyone goes about it differently. Men, I do think struggle because I don't think that you guys feel like you're supposed to, but it kind of goes back to what I said in the beginning. Every man has a little bit of feminine energy in them, and that feminine energy is your emotions, your ability to connect with your emotions. It's not that you have to be emotional. It's that you have to be able to acknowledge your emotion is there and hold a space for it. And if it's holding you back, if it's preventing you from being open to receiving like love, if you're shut off, if your heart is cold, if you're out here hurting women because you were hurt when you were younger, like then you need to do some healing there because you'll never be able to really receive what you want if you're not giving it out either. You know what I mean? Like I feel like but I can't see how some men could be like, I don't want to be a little bitch. Like I don't want to like do that. I get it. It's because it is more, I think it is more kind of like the 9-to-5 structure is more geared towards men. I do believe sometimes therapy is more geared towards women just because of the way that it's set up. But that's why the vetting process is so important. Like you're supposed to just find what works for you and what makes sense for you.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. And honestly, that's a great, you can make an advocacy for your church. You can make an advocacy for talking to your pastor. Yeah. Like your male pastor, you have to sit down and have a conversation with him. That could be your therapy version of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Especially somebody that well-versed in the Bible too, because more than likely he's going to have the answer. Yeah. In a lot of ways. And again, we've talked about the church and whatnot and finding the right church too, and finding churches that, speak to both men and women and, don't just make it super only lovey-dovey of the side of Jesus. There is the fire and brimstone aspect for us men too that comes with it. And so that's an important part about finding the right church. And then maybe you find it through there too, 100%. And so I'm actually real quick, kind of last thing here I was curious about. So obviously with your women's group, I would always, anytime I came in to talk to you and anytime we've spoken, I've always asked about this, is that my question here is, what are your probably top 3 things that you really spoke on in the women's group? And again, you don't have to go into super specific detail because it's not a business. You know what I mean? Like it's essentially classified because
you can't know. There's your top 3.
Damn, that'd be wrong.
Damn, I like that.
But you could go very broad. You could go however you want to do this for sure.
What 3 things that we talked about? I talk about the inner child a lot. Which is a common theme that if you guys want me again, I can break off into that. But that is just like, that is the biggest thing. I think that was one of the biggest things that we talked about. And I had a lot of women come up to me and they're like, I had never even heard of that term. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I was like, yeah, your inner child is essentially where along your life as a child, you got emotionally stunted. And so you stopped growing. That's like where you basically like developed your patterns and up to there, like you were no longer open. You started just acting from that place. Yeah. So you have to go back and kind of like meet that person again, meet that kid again and make space for them and the whole thing. And another thing that we talked about a lot is just like, who do you want to show up as? Because this day and age, everyone's telling you what to be, but who do you, like, what is it, like, what is a ideal woman in your eyes look like? And how far are you from that? What is the gap? How do we close that gap? What's important to you as a woman? Is it important for you to show up as a good mom, as a good wife, as a good teacher, as a good mentor, as a good friend? Like feed, like similar to like the men's group, they talk about buckets and stuff. But like for me, I didn't really put emphasis on all the buckets. I was like, pick the one that's most important to you, where you're lacking, and let's work on that.
Yeah.
And then
Because you can't try to fill everything at
you
the same
can't do
time.
it all at the same time.
Yeah.
And sometimes like there's a little bit of sacrifice. If you're going to put a lot of emphasis into your relationship, like your romantic relationship, then your friendship may take a little bit of a hit. But if you're open communicating that, like, hey, right now I'm really focusing on developing a really good like foundation for my relationship. Like, I want you to know that I'm still here, but this is just where my if you have open communication, it's like, it's okay. Like you're supposed to, your friends will understand if you communicate.
100%.
Absolutely.
Especially if you have good friends.
Yeah.
Which you should.
Which you should. And then I think the third thing, which is probably the biggest thing, is that like no one should be doing life alone. And I always made that a super big topic, because feminism really turned women against each other. They want to empower women, but they really turned women against each other. Like, if you believe something different, then you're wrong. If you are prettier than me, skinnier than me, fitter than me, then you're a bitch or whatever. Like, and it's like, and so that really transferred into like women struggling to make friends with women because they had those ideas in the back of their head.
Yeah.
And that's where the women's group essentially came from. I had a conversation with so many women where I used to work, and the same common theme, like, I can't make friends as an adult. And I'm out here like, I'm making friends with everybody. But if you and you are all saying the same thing, then you guys are on the same exact page. Let's just all sit together. Everyone feels the same. Like, everyone has that same like foundational feeling right now, right? Let's connect.
Right.
Because then if you feel the same thing as that person, you already have something in common with them. Let's see what else you have in common with them.
And that was God working through them to get to you, to then be the one to put it together.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool also. Yeah.
100%.
How, on that same note of the group, how were those topics received by the women?
Everybody was very open to all three, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
It's good
There
to hear.
was, because those are just, I didn't really like touching on like political issues that much. I was like, let's just talk about like women. Like, let's just be women, because sometimes I feel like a lot gets lost in like trying to make people think a certain thing. It's like, believe what you believe, but foundationally, like, these are the things that are important for women.
Yeah.
Let's get to the personal source of women.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
And for the most part, it was all really received. Like, I have really awful imposter syndrome. So before every single women's group that I would host, I would like pick up a book and just try to find a topic that I feel like would apply to multiple women, because there's single women, there's married women, there's young women, there's old women, there's not old, I'm sorry, older. Sorry.
Damn. Yeah. Geriatric women. Yeah.
No, I never had anybody that much older, but
Take the oats bus.
Right, there's
You're crazy. Oh my Lord.
Man, I can't help myself. Sorry.
But I had women from all different walks of life looking for different things. So I was like, okay, well, not every topic is going to hit home for all of them. And sometimes they didn't hit home for everyone. Sure. Sometimes women would show up and they would give more than they would take. But giving that advice and helping someone still fills you, right? If
Absolutely.
you're helping someone.
Absolutely.
It's still fulfilling. So I would always like really prep and everything, and I would have the worst imposter syndrome, and then get up there and talk. And then at the end, I would look around and be like, did you get something out of it? And every single time somebody would just like stay at the end with me and just talk with me. And they were like, this spoke to me, or this really changed my life. I had a woman come once and not be able to come at all because she always had to work at night. And she's like, the one meeting that I had with you changed my entire life. And I was like, that is wild. And here I am, like, my imposter syndrome is terrible, but it's because I cared so much about how like they were going to take it, not even so much about me. It was just so like, is this going to help them?
Right.
But for the most part, everyone was just really receptive. Even if it didn't apply to them, they were like, well, that's a different perspective. Interesting. And then we would just have open discussions. Like, sometimes I disagreed with the stuff that people would say, and I would say it. And I'm like, I don't agree with your perspective, but I see where you're coming from. And it was open discussion. Just like, I don't believe in that.
Right.
You do. That's okay. Like, let's talk more about like why that matters to you.
Yeah. No, that's cool. It's good to hear.
Yeah, it is. One of the, I remember this clearly. I remember one of the general things you mentioned about the women's group. Literally the first things you ever said to me about the women's group is that you make a priority is that you never went in there and attacked men.
Never.
You wouldn't even allow the conversation.
No.
And
I would
think
shut that
that's-
down.
I think that's so important.
So did people try to?
Because there's women that would come to the group and be like, oh, the patriarchy and this and that. And I was like, no. We're not doing that in here. Okay. In here, this isn't about women who want to be better women. Doesn't matter what the men are doing. Yeah. And if you're in here only to talk crap and bash men, you're in here for the wrong reason. This is not the focus of this group. So I would always have to, like, if they would start talking, like, obviously women, the biggest thing I think that women struggle with is like romantic relationships. And I think that's a very common theme. And I don't want to say that's the biggest thing, but that's like one of the common themes that I saw a lot.
Especially nowadays, yeah.
Yeah. And it was a lot of like shifting the blame on them and saying like, well, my man's not very masculine. And I was like, well, are you masculine? Because if you are, then your man can't step into his masculinity.
Ooh, wow.
Or are you allowing him to be? Or instead of saying, well, my man's not doing that, so I can't do that, guess what? One of you has to go first. So who's going to go first? Who's going to do the work first? Or are you going to have the conversation where you simultaneously work on it together? Yeah. So it was a lot of challenging them, but also like saying, hey, guys, and I hated doing it. I hated it. I'd be like, hey, we're not doing that here. Like, let's go back to the topic. Like, we're losing the focus. But it was a lot of like, I had to challenge them like that sometimes. And sometimes I didn't want to. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it is very uncomfortable to like tell someone that what they believe in, like that's limiting them. That's a limiting belief that they're holding on to by choice. Let it go.
Right.
It's not serving you.
Right.
Yeah.
And some of them, and not even just women, but some people just don't know better either. You know, they don't know where to cast that blame or anything. And a lot of people are scared to take accountability as well of their own lives. And, you know, it's interesting too. We have a close friend, and she was texting with me one time. She's like, yeah, I need to get more in tune with my femininity.
You sent her to the group, right?
And, yeah. And she was like, so I'm going to start hanging out more around my boyfriend and his friends because they're all very masculine. I go, well, wait a second. Like that's, I think that's going to do the opposite thing for you. You need to be around more feminine women would be my suggestion. There's this group I know about, and then she went to the group, and I mean, she sent me a whole long text and was like, it was unbelievable. And I'm getting chills right now because it's cool. You know, it's a girl I've known for a while, or we've known for a while, and for her to finally get that clarification and discover those things that she was looking for, like it's pretty cool. And it tells me too that you were doing the right things.
Yeah, she wrote to me after her. She didn't come a lot because she had an issue with transportation after, but. She wrote to me after.
Yeah, it was a whole mess. I remember that.
But I remember when I read her message, I was like, oh my gosh, she like got something out of it for coming. And it was very like detailed. Her message was very like, it was very personal on her experience. And I was like, wow, like more people really need this. I guess I do know what I'm talking about, but also it was just really nice to see that like someone like that who was struggling and looking for some sort of direction found it. Even if it was just like a tiny little like tap in the right direction, that little tiny tap, maybe she'll carry and it'll help her.
Exactly.
And this is the important conversation right here with masculinity and femininity, because again, just because let's say you're dating a masculine woman as a guy, that doesn't mean you need to become the woman in the relationship. So, and like it's true. And because you should be a masculine man no matter what. Doesn't matter if you're dating somebody that's masculine. Like you said, you need to take the first step. Same thing on the women's side of things. Like just because your man may not be leading in certain directions, especially if you're a Christian, by the way, that does not mean you need to step in to take that role over you. You need to stay that feminine woman that you know you are in the same turn there. And again, it goes for men too. Like men, I've had plenty of conversation. I fell into the rut 2-3 years ago, especially where that would be more just like, oh man, like women are this these days. It's very hard to date that type of stuff. In the last 2 years, especially the last year and a half, I've caught myself when I'm having conversations with other men about it, it's no, how can we be better? How can we lead? How can we be masculine in this? How can we set the example as Christian men, especially? And there are still good women out there. I always say that too. I'm like, there are good women out there. And again, like it's the education thing you guys are talking about as well, where somebody might just have no clue that the Bible might say something, or that their role as a woman can be that stay-at-home mother, whatever it is. They might not know that stuff, and that's okay. But bashing each other sure as hell isn't going to solve the issue. That's going to do nothing.
I think most times too is like they just didn't have a good example, and like they just need to find a good example. But the big thing about that, what you're just saying about what can we do? like there will be resentment in a relationship. And this is just like point blank. This is what I've seen across the board from like all of my friends and everything that I've like witnessed from my personal experience. A relationship where the roles are reversed does not work, and it will not work because the woman will, she may be in her masculine in the beginning, but at some point, like I know from my personal experience, I looked around multiple times when like shit would hit the fan with my ex-boyfriend, and he would look at me like, what are we doing? And I'm like, oh, it's on me.
It's on me.
And like it got heavy for me. Even though I was in that masculine energy, it got heavy for me at one point that I was like, who am I going to turn to when I'm dealing with all the kids and I need someone to lean on? Like I need someone to help. Like who am I going to turn to if I can't turn to him because he's turning to me all the time?
Right.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
That's a heavy weight to put on a woman.
And resentment will come through.
That's like you said, it's not her position. Like that should not be the weight on her shoulders. That is not the idea. And again, that's why in the Bible it describes God, man, woman, child.
Yeah.
That's the structure, and it works very well that way when it's delivered in the correct methods, of course.
Yeah.
Through the biblical methods. And again, like that's why we always talk about men, they need to have strong friends around them, even if it's like the 3 to 5 friend group where they can back you up as well. And then that's why your faith needs to be so strong, because you and God need to be on the same page. You and Jesus need to be on the same page, because if you guys are on the same page, you're going to be able to be on the same page and be that rock for your woman and your children as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. But the resentment will grow if you're not. It really will.
No doubt.
And the balance will be thrown off. Like, I will say, I think I'll just like close that with this, but it's hard to see when there's like a beautiful relationship within like two people and their roles are thrown off, because it doesn't matter like how good of people they are if they're not stepping into like their actual like nature's role. Like they're never gonna make the other person happy. Yeah. And like the relationship is set to doom unless one of them makes a difference. I had a lot of customers that people just open up to me a lot. So
they do.
They really do. Like and everyone's like, you should be a therapist. I'm like, I'm going back to school. Hell no.
No way. Yeah.
No, I respect them and I love them, but I had a lot of women that would always tell me like, I don't know anything. I don't know what it is about you, but like you're just like so soft and like feminine. And how did you do it? And I was like, I did the work that you know you want to do, but you're waiting for your husband to do first so that you can then step into it. But you're not going to. Nothing's going to change if they go first. Like if you guys simultaneously do it, the podcast that I referred to in the beginning, or the guy that I referred to in the beginning, he did a great episode with this woman who was about to get a divorce from her husband. Her and her husband were completely thrown off. So she by nature is very driven, hardworking. So she's more masculine, right? Those are more masculine roles. But she was starting to crave being more feminine. But her husband was more feminine because he relied on her a little bit more. And your cat just scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, you're like, what is this creature coming down?
Like there's a demon or something.
There's a being coming down the stairs.
Moki is a scary kitty. That's true.
He moved so slow, and I was just not ready.
That's so funny.
He's contemplating coming down.
Yeah.
She talked about how her and her husband, like she was like, I was ready. I was on a trip in Mexico with my friends, already talking about how I'm gonna be this hot like MILF and I'm gonna find myself a masculine man and blah blah blah. And she's like, and then I realized like I'm not changing anything about myself. I'm just going to divorce my husband and then go and look for the same thing essentially because I'm attracting that same thing. And she's like, it made me realize that that's just a pattern that I had. I had to sit with my husband and say, hey, let's do something. Let's both actively work on ourselves. You reconnect with yourself. I reconnect with myself. In the next 90 days, if this doesn't work out, then we say that we tried. She's like, we didn't even need 90 days. After the 30 days, I just felt so more in tune with myself. And then we looked at each other and we said, we're doing this for life.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Because
that's freaking cool.
Yeah. So like, I don't think that in relationships you have to end things for things to be able to work on yourself. I think you could do it simultaneously, but I ultimately think like one has to go first. She had to be the one to realize like, hey, there's an imbalance here. There's a disconnect here. Why don't we reconnect with ourselves and then we can reconnect with each other?
And let's
Especially
address the problem.
And they're married.
Yes.
Address the problem, especially if you're married.
Yeah.
And address the problem
we saw
together.
Our parents do that.
Right.
100%. But we all saw our parents do that all the time. That was, again, we're very blessed in that way. We saw our parents actually address it and actually solve issues that were going on. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what marriage is.
Yeah. I've seen my mom do that with my stepdad now. Like,
love that.
They've been married since I was what's the age? I think they were married when I was 12 years old. but they've been together since I was like 8 or 9. So basically the majority of my life. And
Very nice.
my mom is very honest and open with like me and my sisters about like the hardships that come with marriage. Cause she's like, you're going to encounter them yourself one day. Like that's just the reality of life. No marriage is perfect. And it's not supposed to be. Like you're supposed to grow together. And she'll tell me, she's like, there's like time when like he pissed me off and blah, 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 blah. But then like I realized like it's me, him, and God. And then it was like, he pissed me off. It's me and him against the problem, not the problem against like, not me and the problem against him or him and the, so it's like, it's fighting for it. And coming from like a family that was like broken and essentially seeing my mom learn that lesson and have a beautiful relationship now with my stepdad, it's like, yes, if you work on it, like you can come out of it. You don't have to be in a broken relationship because it didn't work out. Like love is built. Yeah. Right? Like it's something that you build, you work on it. It's not something that you just feel for someone and the love is there and then the love is gone and that's it. No, love, like the feeling of love, you may lose it for someone over time if you spend so much time with them, but it's the choice to feel it again.
Right.
And connect over and over again.
Right. And addressing problems too. Like
addressing
we just
problems.
Said, not suppressing them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we knew this would be a great conversation and I think we executed that.
Yeah.
So Lau, where can everyone find you on social media?
What's my Instagram handle?
No shot. That's
Lau
funny.
Silva. Lau Silva _.
I would say, is there an
Okay.
underscore? Yeah.
There's
Okay.
an underscore.
Perfect.
Lau
Perfect.
Silva
At the
_
end. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
We'll be sure to put that in the Spotify and YouTube descriptions for you guys so you can find her easily. Lau, thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, this
Thank
was
you.
great. This
Seriously.
was great.
Thank you.
We're gonna have to do this again.
I'm game.
For sure.
But not like after 3 months.
Right.
Damn. Not 3 months of planning again. I don't know who did that.
Yikes, yeah.
That definitely wasn't us.
No.
I got text receipts. Okay.
I don't know what
You
you're
guys
talking
can't
Remember, guys, masculinity means not taking accountability for anything.
about. Blame.
means remembering everything. But thank you so much, guys, for real.
Yeah, no, this was great. So, guys, as always, share the show. Okay, share it to Instagram stories. Share it with your friends and family. It is free. It is very, very simple. And it helps us grow. It helps us continue to get more eyes and more guests on so we can continue to have these great conversations because it's not about any of us. It's about helping you guys, the viewers, the listeners. So keep sharing the show. Submit the Q&A questions. You know all the ways. We go through that in our other episodes. I'll save you the time for now. But guys, until next time, peace and love.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.